We're back and ready to kick off the new year by diving right into a topic that's been weighing heavily on everyone's minds.
Absolutely.
These two attacks, one in Las Vegas, one in New Orleans over the holidays.
Yeah, it's definitely been a tough way to start the year.
It has. And, we're going to try to unpack it all here for you as best we can. So if you're looking for that kind of in-depth analysis, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned because we're going to get into it right now.
It seems like every time you turn on the news, there's another shocking event, another tragedy.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get swept up in the initial wave of information. But
Totally.
I think it's crucial to take a step back and really try to understand what happened, what we know, and what it all means.
Yeah. I think that's where we come in, right? We try to make sense of this stuff.
Exactly.
For ourselves and hopefully for all of you out there listening. So why don't we start with the Las Vegas attack?
Sure.
Now we have Levelsberger, a decorated Army veteran who detonated a bomb in a Tesla Cybertruck. Of all things. Right outside the Trump Hotel.
Oh.
7 bystanders were injured.
Yeah.
Thankfully, not seriously.
Luckily.
But Berger himself died in the blast. So right off the bat, we have this really strange mix of elements.
Absolutely. And what's particularly striking is how authorities are classifying this.
Right.
They're calling it a suicide driven by personal grievances, not an act of terrorism.
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting because then you have these letters they found on his phone.
Right.
Where he's expressing all these frustrations with society, with the political climate.
It's a really mixed bag in those letters.
It is. He rails against things like DEI initiatives.
Yeah.
He talks about income inequality and the homeless population.
Yeah.
But then he also voices support for figures like Trump, Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah. It's a strange combination of viewpoints.
It is very strange.
And it suggests a worldview that's both disillusioned with the current state of affairs and also drawn to those who promise disruption or change.
Yeah. And we also can't overlook the fact that his ex-girlfriend mentioned that he suffered a traumatic brain injury while serving in the Middle East.
Yeah, so that raises the question of PTSD.
Right.
Could that have played a role?
Absolutely. And something investigators are definitely looking into.
Oh, I'm sure.
And they're still analyzing his cell phones. 2 of them.
Wow.
And other evidence. What else might they find there?
It's hard to say for sure, but every piece of information helps.
Yeah, it's a puzzle.
And speaking of piecing things together, let's shift gears to New Orleans.
Okay.
Where the investigation has uncovered something truly unique and disturbing.
You're talking about the explosive compound used in the Bourbon Street bombings.
Precisely. The one that officials are saying has never been seen before.
Yeah, never before in a terror attack in the U.S. or Europe.
Right, and that raises so many questions.
It's terrifying. 14 lives lost, countless others injured, and now this mystery surrounding the weapon itself.
Yeah, it's just a chilling reminder that the landscape of terrorism is constantly evolving, always changing.
Always changing, and we have to keep up. So how did Shamsuddin Jabbar, the perpetrator, how did he even learn about this compound, let alone acquire it?
It's a huge question.
And to make things even more complex, they found similar bomb-making materials at his rental in New Orleans and a mobile home linked to him in Houston.
Oh. So this is getting complicated.
Very complicated.
So we have this incredibly unusual, explosive compound. No clear answers yet on its origin.
Yeah.
Or how Jabbar obtained it. Does this point to a larger network, or are we looking at something else entirely?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's the one that investigators are racing to answer. Early on, there were concerns about accomplices.
Right.
But the current thinking is that he acted alone. However, they've issued a nationwide alert to law enforcement.
Right.
Warning of possible copycat attacks.
Oh, wow. That's concerning.
It is. Oh. It's a reminder that we can't just focus on catching the perpetrators. But we need to understand and anticipate those ripple effects. Right. And those ripple effects go beyond just law enforcement.
Absolutely.
Thinking about this new compound, how easily it devastated a crowded public space like Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
What does this tell us about the future of security in public areas?
Right.
What measures do you think strike the right balance between ensuring safety and preserving freedom?
That's a tough one.
It is tough. We want to hear your thoughts on this, so leave a comment down below.
Yes, definitely let us know.
Let us know your thoughts, and if you're finding this breakdown helpful, don't forget to give us a like. It really helps us reach a wider audience.
It really does.
So
yeah, let's keep the conversation going.
Let's keep going. But for now, let's circle back to these attacks and see what insights we can glean by comparing and contrasting them.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's a conversation we need to have on all levels, really. from policy decisions to, just individual awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's circle back to those attacks for a moment and try to unpack that.
Yeah.
Why? The motivation behind them. In the Las Vegas case, Levelsberger specifically called his attack a wake-up call.
Right.
In one of his letters.
Yeah.
What do you think he was trying to wake people up to?
That's a really good question. And it gets right to the heart of his motivations, His letters, they paint this picture of a man who's grappling with some really complex issues. Disillusionment with societal changes, a sense of economic injustice, and a yearning for strong leadership. His support for figures as diverse as Trump and Musk and Kennedy.
Right.
It suggests that he might have been searching for answers, searching for someone to address the issues that were troubling him.
So it wasn't just about specific policies or ideologies.
Yeah.
It was something deeper.
Yeah, it was about a deeper sense of unease with the direction of society, a feeling that the system was failing him.
Others like him.
Exactly. And this feeling of being left behind, of not having a voice, it can be especially strong for veterans. They've served their country often at great personal cost. And they may struggle to find their place back in civilian life.
Right.
And then you add in the possibility of PTSD from that traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
And you've got a recipe for a pretty volatile worldview.
It's tragic, really. A decorated veteran driven to such extremes.
Yeah.
You can't help but wonder, were there any warning signs? Any missed opportunities to intervene and provide support?
I think that's a question that will probably haunt those who knew him. Could something have been done? It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But this case definitely highlights the need for better mental health resources for veterans.
Absolutely. Especially those struggling with the invisible wounds of war.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a systemic issue that we can't ignore. But shifting gears now to the New Orleans attack.
Okay.
There's a different kind of mystery at play here. The origin and use of that never-before-seen explosive compound.
Right.
What makes this compound so unique, and what does its use suggest about Jabbar's capabilities?
This is where things get really unsettling.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't divulge classified information, but
Yeah, of course.
what we can say is that this compound is not something that's readily available or easily synthesized.
Okay.
It points to a level of knowledge and access that's deeply concerning. Did Jabbar develop this himself? Was he part of a larger network with sophisticated resources?
Right.
These are questions that investigators are trying to answer.
It's almost like a whole new level of threat has emerged.
Yeah.
And the fact that authorities are worried about copycats just adds to the anxiety.
Absolutely. This case is a wake-up call for the intelligence community, for the security community.
Right.
Terrorist tactics are evolving, and we need to be ready to adapt and respond to those changes.
And that adaptation needs to happen on multiple levels.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
From intelligence gathering to security measures in public spaces. And speaking of which, I can't help but think back to that 2019 security report.
Right.
That flagged Bourbon Street as vulnerable to attacks.
Yeah. It's a tragic reminder that sometimes warnings go unheeded.
Yeah.
Or that implementing security measures can be a slow and complex process.
Right. In this case, the metal barriers that were supposed to prevent vehicle attacks.
Right.
They were outdated and ineffective.
They were.
Replacement work was underway, but it wasn't finished in time.
Right.
It makes you wonder, is there a broader systemic issue here? Are we doing enough to protect our public spaces? Are we striking the right balance between security and freedom of movement?
These are questions that deserve serious consideration. And it's not just about physical barriers or, law enforcement presence. It's about intelligence, sharing threat assessment, and fostering a culture of vigilance.
Right.
Without succumbing to fear.
Right. It's a complex challenge, for sure, but one we need to face head on.
I agree.
Now, before we move on, I want to turn the conversation over to you for a moment.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the need for vigilance in public spaces, but how do you think we can achieve that without sacrificing our freedoms? What measures do you think are effective and reasonable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to give us a like. It really helps us keep these discussions going.
It does.
But for now, let's dive back into these attacks and see what insights we can glean by comparing and contrasting them.
Yeah, it's amazing how these two attacks, they seem so different on the surface.
Right.
But when you dig a little deeper, there are some unsettling similarities.
Absolutely. On the surface, we have a veteran driven to a suicide bombing in Vegas, seemingly fueled by these personal grievances.
Right.
And then in New Orleans, we have this seemingly ISIS-inspired attack using a completely unknown explosive compound.
Yeah.
It'd be easy to just see them as isolated incidents, but
are they really?
yeah, that's the question. Right?
That's the question. Both cases point to individuals who felt alienated, disconnected from mainstream society. In Berger's case, it manifests as this anger towards societal changes, economic inequality.
Yeah.
This system he felt was failing him. With Jabbar, we see this potential embrace of extremist ideology, maybe finding a sense of belonging or purpose in a group that promises a radical alternative.
It's like both of them were searching for something.
Yeah.
Some kind of answer or solution to the problems they saw in the world, even if those solutions were tragically misguided.
Absolutely. And that search led them down very dark paths.
Yeah, it did. And it highlights the importance of understanding the bigger picture here.
Yes.
The context in which these events occur. What are those underlying societal factors that contribute to this sense of alienation and despair?
Right.
How do people become susceptible to extremist ideologies, violent actions? These are tough questions.
They are tough questions.
With no easy answers.
Yeah.
But they're questions we got to be asking.
We do.
If we want to prevent these tragedies from happening again.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that we can't just focus on the attacks themselves, but also on the why, that complex web of factors,
root cause
that lead to these acts of violence.
Yeah. And understanding those whys, it requires a multifaceted approach. It's about addressing those systemic issues like inequality, lack of opportunity, but it's also about fostering individual resilience, critical thinking skills, and that sense of belonging within communities.
It's about creating a society where people feel heard,
yes,
valued and empowered, regardless of their background or their beliefs.
I think that's key.
Yeah.
When individuals feel like they have a stake in the system, when they believe in the possibility of peaceful change, they're less likely to resort to violence or extremism.
This has been a pretty heavy conversation.
It has.
But it's an important one to have.
I agree.
We can't shy away from these difficult topics.
I agree.
Because understanding them is the first step towards preventing future tragedy.
Absolutely. It's through open and honest dialogue, thoughtful analysis, and a commitment to understanding the root causes of this violence that we can create a safer and more just world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But it's clear that both of these events, while distinct in their details, raise some really fundamental questions.
Yeah.
About the state of our world and the challenges we face. It's a reminder to stay informed, to engage in these critical conversations.
Yes.
And to never take our safety and security for granted.
Well said. And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about these complex issues, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the challenges ahead.
And if you found this conversation enlightening, please give us a like and consider subscribing for more deep dives into critical topics.
Yes, please do.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.